What's up? It's Jay, man, back with another video, man. Today we're going to be talking about how to make preventative controls to reduce the attack surface and the attack vector in your home networks. This time I'm going to be using a bit of various scenarios that could happen on some of my critical devices on my network. And we're going to show preventative controls on how to keep that from happening to those devices on your home network. So let's get started with our PowerPoint. Let's switch over here. All right, and again, we're going to start with our mission statement. Scale Security Group exists to protect, strengthen communities through education-driven real-world cybersecurity. Our mission is to empower families, small businesses, and organizations with the knowledge, tools, and defenses needed to navigate today's digital landscape safely. All right, so here's a list of all of my critical assets that are a part of my home network. I pulled this from my Verizon firewall settings. As you can see, it's quite a bit, it's including my virtual machines, all of my phones, Ring cameras, Xbox, PlayStation gaming systems, and they're all there. Some of them are Ethernet and some of them are Wi-Fi. Some of them have both, just depending on what I'm using them for. So scope of today's work is this project identifies and analyzes critical assets within a home enterprise environment by simulating realistic cyber attacks and scenarios. Each asset is evaluated for threat exposure, detection indicators, risk impact, and remediation strategies. Preventative controls are implemented and mapped out to the Minder attack framework and NIST standards to demonstrate the defense in-depth approach and foundational security operations center practices. So the first device we're going to talk about is my home device, which is known as the Bat computer, which is my primary workstation. The scenario that we came up with was a user opens a phishing email containing a fake invoice attachment and malware attempts to dump browser credentials and establish persistence within the network and the system. Some of the detection indicators that might happen is a newly scheduled task on startup or entry and unusual outbound connections. Defender or Wazoo alert for credential access. These are all indicators of how these detections might occur. All right, so remediation steps. You want to isolate the system from the network, run a full AV offline scan just to make sure the malware doesn't become persistent. Reset all credentials used in the system. That's all passwords that are used by the users and all administrators. Review startup items and schedule tasks and re-image the system if persistence is confirmed. The backup plan is to restore a forward known from a good backup, so make sure you have the backup always stored on here. Rejoin the network in a restricted VLAN. So make sure that your network is fully isolated if it becomes under attack and you don't want it to be able to have lateral movement between the rest of your networks, and then gradually re-enable some of the services and startup services that are on the computer, and then monitor closely for 48 hours. All right, so the CVE, Minder attack, and NIST and risk assessments that are shown. The CVEs is some known CVEs that happen during some of these scenarios. For example, CVE 2024-21413 is Microsoft Outlook moniker link. Outlook link handling can enable code execution associated with bypassing protections. The attack framework, initial access. Of course, it's a phishing attack because we open a bad link in an email. Execution, credential access, and then persistence. That's the attack framework. NIST mappings, NIST CSF, PR.AT, which is awareness, AC access control, DS data security, CM monitoring, and MI mitigation. And then we have NIST 800-53. Those are all good examples of it. The risk score. The likelihood of this happening is very common. A lot of times in SOC environments, we get through some of our users that just open up malicious emails and click those links. Oh, you want $1 billion? Click this link to claim your prize, and now your whole system is being under attack. The impact is 5. Accounts and workstation compromised. So any accounts, any user accounts, administrator accounts, regular accounts that can access your workstation are all under compromise. And this is a critical threat, so they gave it a score of 25. So some preventative controls. Enforce strong identity access. Definitely have at least 8 to 10 characters of uppercase, lowercase, and symbols and letters for your passwords, as well as multi-factor authentication. So if you need to sign into your device, it cannot be signed in one way. Facial recognition is very good if you have a camera that can support that, or a PIN number is also good for that, but never have just one way to access any device on your home or in your regular networks. All right, so as you can see through my screenshots, that I have activated facial recognition, and I've also added 2 different accounts. So I have one account that is an administrator account that I use for downloads, and the other account, which is what I'm on right now, is just used for regular access for everyday tasks. All right, the next control, which is control 3, is to reduce phishing exposure by implementing email filtering controls that include any attachment, sandboxing, link reputation analysis, and macro blocking for files originating from the internet. So a lot of the newer email accounts like Google and all of those, they have automated phishing detection, but they're not perfect. So make sure that you have an extra step, an extra layer of security that is going to make sure that you are not opening up malicious files or downloading malicious files to your operating system. As you can see, I've activated enhanced protection on my Google Chrome. That'll make sure I'm not going to any malicious websites or downloading any malicious content from those websites or emails. All right, then control 4 is establish continuous monitoring by enabling detailed endpoint logging for process creation, PowerShell activity, scheduling, task creation. So here I have set the audited events. Some of these are on. So I'm going to be monitoring all logins, any escalation of privilege use, system events, policy changes, any of those things I'm going to be notified about. So that way I can make sure that I'm actually logging and monitoring everything that's going on in my system. All right. So the next device we're going to talk about is my backup computer, which is known as Cerebro 1914. The simulated attack that we're using is privilege escalation via monitor services. And the scenario, attacker abuses service running with elevated privileges to gain admin or root access to my computer. Some of these detection indicators that could possibly happen are unexpected sudo admin commands, new privileged accounts that you did not install yourself, service configuration changes, and SIM alerts, privilege escalation behavior. Remediation steps if this does happen to your computer: disable the affected service, patch your operating system and services, rotate admin credentials, change passwords, logins, all of that. Audit all of the people that are using sudo, so we call those sudoers, in admin groups. Look for geolocation, IP address, and timetable for the activity, and then always enable least privilege enforcement. Backup plan: if you cannot remediate through any of these steps, your backup plan is to roll back the service to configuration only, keep the patch operating system in place, and re-enable services under a limited account, and validate logs before you're putting it back under production. CVE, I'm not going to go through all of these, but the CVE that we have is CVE 2021, and this is a poll kit, PKE exec local privilege escalation, or is known as pawn kit. The minor attack is going to be privilege escalation, defense evasion, and persistence. NIST mappings is going to be NIST, CSF, patch management, least privilege monitoring, and mitigation. And we're going again with NIST 800-53, flaw remediation, least privilege, and audit review. The likelihood, this is a lower score, so it's a likelihood of 3. But the impact, if it does happen, is 5. So your whole server and everything on all your operating systems can be taken over. And it is a score of 15 high. So if we will go back to our other example, it's not as high as a risk, but the impact can be detrimental to all of your services. So let's get into some of these preventative controls. You want to maintain a secure baseline by applying regular operating system and package updates. Make sure that your computer is always running updated apps, versions of those apps, and of course your operating system. Some of the legacy products will not be compatible with that, so make sure that you also do your updates in your pre-production environment first to make sure that all of your apps will be compatible with the updated version of your operating system. And you also need to make sure you're adding a second account, like I said before, that is not an administrative account, and make sure only the person that has the rights to access administrator privileges has those, using least privilege. All right, and then you can go through and add different groups to different MFAs and all of that to make sure that you are only running the users and administrators that need to be run onto your system. Next control is going to be the patch management and operating system hardening. Again, make sure your apps are updated. Make sure that all of your packages are updated. Make sure that everything is up to date, so there are no known vulnerabilities that are available for those patches on your computer. Cool. All right. Control 3, that's Microsoft Defender exploit and credential protection. Make sure that you have all of these turned on. As you can see, I took a screenshot and I added those to that. So we're checking apps and files, smart screen for Microsoft Edge, and phishing protection. All of these are added. And I also added tamper protection to make sure that none of my files can be overwritten or tampered with, because they're all under an encryption status. So make sure that none of these files can be tampered with and the integrity of the file stays intact. Control 4 is the application control and startup persistence prevention. Go back and check your startup apps and make sure that anything that is not super critical to your everyday operations is disabled on your computer. All right, so third device. This is a Ring camera. This is actually something that had happened. I don't know if a lot of you guys saw it, but on the internet, a lot of people on Facebook and Instagram were saying that they had suspicious logins of people going into their Ring accounts and watching their Ring cameras. Kind of dangerous. You don't want people to know your physical security layers, and you do not want them to know what you have outside of your house, and just you don't want the strangers knowing where you live. That's just a normal everyday thing. So this attack is real and it actually can happen, but we're going to talk about it. Unauthorized access being weak cloud credentials. Attacker logs into the Ring account and views the camera feed, disables alerts, and changes the device settings. Detection indicators, log in from an unfamiliar IP or location. A lot of people were saying that they had people logging in from areas across the seas or geographic locations that aren't anywhere close to where they live. The camera settings are modified and alert notifications are disabled. All right, so remediation steps. Reset the Ring account password first, and then enable MFA immediately. Make sure you have multiple ways that you can sign into the account, not just one way. So if a user does access it, they're going to be hit with another token to be able to access the account. Remove unknown devices or sessions. If you see something on there that is not one of your devices, just a random iPhone with an IP address that doesn't belong to you, or a computer, desktop, MacBook, anything that doesn't belong on your account, make sure you delete it immediately. And also make sure that the firmware is updated on whatever Ring cameras you're using. And then some devices, Verizon doesn't really allow it, but you can use a separate virtual local area network to establish your own connection with those Ring cameras that aren't going to interfere within your home network. If all of these remediation steps don't work, backup plan is go ahead to factory reset the device. Go ahead and wipe it, factory reset it, re-enroll using secure credentials, not the same credentials that were just hacked. You want to make sure you're signing in with new credentials, and then restore the default alert rules, and then test motion detection locally and make sure everything is working the way it's supposed to work. So CVE, emitter attack, NIST, and risk assessment. So the CVE mapping is from a CVE 2019-9483. This is Amazon Ring doorbell encryption mishandling. Vulnerability affecting video audio integrity, confidentiality, and older firmware, not specific to floodlight cams, but relevant to Ring ecosystem and risk discussion. The emitter attack that they used is the credential access, of course, brute force, modify authentication process, collection, and defense evasion. NIST mappings are going to be NIST CSF. We're using MFA, protective tech segmentation, monitoring, and we're using login attempts, network segmentation, and of course MFA, so that's NIST 800-53. The likelihood of this happening is a 4. The impact is 4. Privacy and safety concerns, of course. but it's not going to shut down your whole system. They're not going to be able to laterally move throughout your network, and this still is a critical threat just because of the privacy and safety concerns. Now, to prevent this attack, prevent unauthorized access by enforcing strong, unique credentials. Make sure that you're using long passwords with uppercase and lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols, at least 8 to 10, or whatever password policy you set up for your home devices. And make sure you're adding MFA to these. Make sure you have an extra phone number or another way to access this account other than just you signing in with your iPhone. All right, Face ID is good for that. Fingerprint if you still have one of the older iPhones, or an alternate phone number with a text message sent. Preferably not email, because your email is very, very vulnerable at sometimes, and it can be hacked. So make sure you're using something that's very secure. Control 2, reduce the blast radius by placing the ring floodlight on a dedicated IoT network. So again, some routers do allow you to segment your network. So if you can, put your IoT devices on their own separate network. So if something does happen to those IoT devices, it won't affect your main network. Control 3, ensure device resilient by enabling automatic firmware updates. Make sure your automatic updates are configured on your phone. And establish visibility into the device behavior by monitoring account activity. So make sure you're always monitoring what is going on the account. Any unauthorized login attempts, make sure those are being sent and push notifications through your email that's connected to the account, or through the phone number that's connected through the account. All right, device 4 is going to be my Xbox Series X, a home gaming system. The attack that we're going to use is network abuse or internal denial of service. That's what DOS stands for. Compromised internal device floods Xbox with traffic, causing lag, service disconnects, and NAT exhaustion. Detection indicators are always high local network traffic, Xbox connectivity errors, router alerts for bandwidth spikes. So you're playing Call of Duty, and you're getting drugged, but you're seeing that your ping is 153 millibits per second, which is terrible. You want to be in the lower range of that. That means that somebody is either giving you a denial of service, or your network is super slow, or your router is not allowing the amount of bandwidth that it takes to run that game smoothly. So remediation steps: identify traffic source, apply the quality of service rule, disable UPnP, and patch router firmware. If this does not work and your game continues to lag, then just go ahead and relax the quality of service. That means you're going to change the amount of bandwidth that's coming in and out of your router. So a lot of people have theirs on strict, so you might want to bring it down to moderate, or even something even lower than that, just to make sure that you're getting the amount of bandwidth that is needed to run the system right. Re-enable only the required ports. If you're going back and disabling ports to try to minimize the amount of network traffic going in and out of your router, then you're going to have to re-enable some of these things, because some of the ports that are used on Xbox need to be open for it to run smoothly. Make sure you have a traffic baseline. So if you're running a Nessus or a Tenable, to make sure that your network scans are running the way that they're supposed to run, and then gradually harden the system again. CVE, emitter attack, NIST, and risk assessments. CVE mapping is going to be the 2024-28916 Xbox Gaming Service Elevation of Privilege. Applies to Xbox Gaming Service software, which is not necessarily on the Series X console, but if you are using a gaming PC, this can also happen on your gaming PC, because Xbox does run an app on gaming PCs. The attack framework is going to be Impact, command and control. NIST mapping is going to be CSF or 800-53. Network segmentation, traffic monitoring, boundary protection monitoring, and recovery. The likelihood of this happening is a 4. The impact is 3. It's just a quality of living type thing. You want to be able to enjoy your games when you want to enjoy your games how they're supposed to be enjoyed. So the score is fairly low, but it's still a high impact. So just keep going. All right, preventative controls. Control 1. Protect availability by segmenting the Xbox onto a dedicated gaming network or VLAN, and applying quality of service rules to limit bandwidth consumption and prevent internal traffic floods from disrupting gameplay. Although my network, Verizon, does not allow a lot of segmentation, it allows you to have a 5 gig, a 2.4 gig, and I think 1 guest. So segmentation is really limited with the base router package. But if you are running different routers, I would suggest running them on its own separate VLAN. And when you're actually using that system, that all of your, or the majority of your bandwidth is dedicated to running the traffic through that device. Harden your network infrastructure by disabling and tightly restricting UPnP, enabling a stateful firewall, and keeping router firmware up to date. As usual with any devices, you want to make sure they're all up to date. Make sure that you are running a static DHP to make sure that your internet is not switching up every time you log in. That will help create a baseline flow of traffic and network traffic to make sure that your device is running the way that it should be. Control 3, increase network visibility by enabling flow monitoring and traffic analysis on the router to detect abnormal spikes in bandwidth usage. Identify top talking devices early helps prevent sustained availability and degradation. And then Control 4, improve reliability by reserving DHCP addresses and protecting NAT resources. For my DHCP server, I have any of them from 0.2, you can see that 192 point whatever 0.2, and we're going all the way to 0.254. So all of those are reserved for my Wi-Fi and Ethernet settings. All right, then our last device is going to be my daughter's iPad. This is going to be a simulated attack where she goes in and she clicks a suspicious email, and then her whole session is hijacked and the tokens are reused, and now they're swiping credentials. They're using all of her saved passwords to log into all of her other accounts. So these are the detection indicators, login alerts from new devices, iCloud security notifications, and app reauthorization prompts. A lot of times, especially Instagram users, you might get an email saying, oh, your device or your account has a password reset notification, and you didn't want to change your password. That means somebody else is trying to hack into your device and hack your Instagram profile, which usually happens through this phishing attempt that we're going to talk about now. All right, so remediation steps. Always, first, reset the password and reset it to something that is secure. Again, 8 to 10 characters long with uppercase, lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols. Enable multi-factor authentication. Revoke all of your sessions that are used on your apps. Make sure you close all of your apps, reopen your apps, revoke any sessions that are all still open. Remove suspicious profiles. Go through and check the settings on your phone and make sure that you don't have any random phone numbers that are added as MFA accounts. And then always keep the iPad updated. Apple's pretty good about releasing patches and updates. Very well, they do it a lot. So just make sure that you're keeping up with the updates to make sure that you don't have any vulnerabilities on that device. The backup plan, if you can't get any of these things to work, restore from the last clean backup. Make sure you have a backup point. Re-enroll Apple ID securely with this new password. Reinstall all of your apps selectively, so you're not just running a bunch of random apps on your phone or apps that you don't use anymore. So you also need to get rid of those apps that you're not using anymore, because some of those are end of life. Some of those don't have any updates coming out for them, so they are very vulnerable. Monitor account access logs, so make sure that nobody's logging in or attempting to log into that device. CVE attack framework, NIST and risk assessment. The CVE mapping is 2025-43529. WebKit used after free arbitrary code execution via web content. And the WebKit memory corruption via web content. The attack framework is going to be initial access, execution, credential access, collections. NIST mappings is going to be 800-53. And this is going to be MFA, patch management, and all of those things. Your risk score, likelihood. Apple is one of the most secure devices out there, so the likelihood of this happening is a low 3. But again, it depends on the user behavior. So if you're dealing with kids that are, scrolling the internet unwatched and unmonitored, then the chances of you getting malware or somebody clicking on a suspicious link on that device is higher. So make sure that you have internet filters and things like that, so they can't click on those suspicious links or download or make their way over to sites that they're not supposed to be on. The impact is a 5. Device and account compromise potential, especially if that device is linked to one of your devices. They can definitely laterally move, access your credentials, get into your account. So this is a score of 15. All right, preventative controls. Minimize exploitation risk by enabling automatic iPad OS updates. Make sure your automatic updates are turned on your iPad. Sometimes, if you leave it on the charger at night, it'll absolutely update on its own. So make sure that is activated on your phone. Secure identity account access by enforcing MFA. Make sure if you have multiple Apple devices, make sure that they are used to log into your device. If you have an Apple Watch, make sure that is secure. If you have an iPhone, make sure that is secure, but add it as a form of MFA to be able to sign in and log into your device, just in case you need to reset your credentials. Control 3, reduce exposure to malicious web content by enabling Safari fraud warnings. If they're using Safari, make sure that their Safari is secure. If they're using Chrome, make sure their Chrome browser is secure. And then protect data recovery by enabling encrypted backups, reviewing install configure profiles, and ensuring remote wipe of the active in case the device is compromised. All right, so that's pretty much it. I went through 5 of my most critical devices that me and my family use every day, and some common threats or vulnerabilities that are present and prevalent in those devices, and how to mitigate those risks, and the framework that attackers might use to get into your systems. If you have any questions, make sure you leave them in the comments below. And this is Jay. We're signing off again. Thank you.